Hi, everyone. It's Allison Henry and Janda Murphy from Innovation and Impact Alliance. And we're here today to talk about self-awareness and self-regulation as the foundational social emotional learning skills that we should be all creating products for and teaching across pre-K through 12. And why this topic kind of came top of mind for us is during the past few years, we were doing pilot studies in early childhood and all the way up through teens in high school, is it kept coming back to these being the missing skills and not being taught first or forefront in academic settings in schools. What we found is that most programs and pedagogies, whether it's professional development, curriculums, or just how teachers are, kind of taught in any sort of preparation or ongoing way, is that they really focus first on relationship building and social awareness, meaning how to share, take turns, how to recognize a friend's feelings, be kind to others, respect adults. And these are all really important SEL skills, except you skip over or don't teach thoroughly self-awareness and self-regulation, which are the building blocks to be able to build positive relationships and contribute to society. So we're going to talk today about those two as foundational. And I don't know about you, Shanda, kind of as parents, when you are raising young children and you go to play groups or they go to preschool, everything that was reinforced to me as a parent was teach your kid how to take turns and how to share, but I never learned how to manage help my child manage a tantrum during turn taking or sharing if something didn't go well. And so I really hope to kind of reinforce that message today so we can help, whether you're a parent, an educator, a leader helping other parents, a product provider. Don't skip over self-awareness and self-regulation.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the things that is an afterthought for sure, because we do reinforce kindness, which is important, right? Like kindness and respect, and respecting adults and respecting your peers. And it's extremely important. And it's one of the things we jump right into when we get into schools from the very beginning, starting in pre K, we see it. But that doesn't work or doesn't happen if they don't understand first, how am I feeling? Maybe why am I even feeling that way? And then how do I manage that better to be able to be kind, to be able to take turns effectively, to be able to respect others. And so we have always kind of taught it backwards. And I think we're starting to see that now, especially with teens and early adults, in terms of not being able to handle minor inconveniences, I guess is a good way to say it, or needing instant gratification, or and in terms of not being able to self-manage or self-soothe. And we've always seen that in teens, but it's of course going to be heightened with all of the distractions and technology in our society. And so how do we then undo that? And I think teaching, going back to those basics of teaching self-awareness and self-management, are so important. When I work with schools, and I know we've had this conversation because you've experienced the same thing, it's amazing too what people think and the misconception on what SEL is. And I feel like I say over and over again, it is that we're talking about the basics. So a lot of times the schools, once we get to middle school and high school, are really talking a lot about digital awareness, digital education, bullying, how to respect others. And we forget that we need to back it way up and say, well, we need to teach kids how to just take that pause. How can you take that pause? Can you recognize how you're feeling first before we react? And I think that's especially important, not just at the pre-K level, but also the teens. Also, when I have been working with a lot of them recently in the high schools, one of the first things I ask them is, do you remember being taught to share? Do you remember being taught to take turns? And everyone says yes, their hands go up. And then I ask, how many of you were taught to talk about your feelings? How many of you were taught how to manage those feelings and given tools to do so? And, one or two hands go up. So we know that as parents, like we talked about, we're taught and instructed to teach them how to interact well with their peers. And I know the same thing's going on in SEL programs. A lot of the ones that I've seen and we've worked with, Kindness is a big piece of it, which is what we need, of course. Social awareness is a big piece. Cultural awareness is a big piece. We need all of those things, but we cannot, like you said, skip over the self awareness and self management.
Right. And that's why, I mean, going back to a universal strategy around self-awareness and self-regulation is your breath. And
Yeah.
that is something that you teach from a very young age with, hand on your tummy or hand on your chest. You can teach that to a toddler, all the way through. I mean, I'm still practicing using my breath in situations that are anxiety provoking, or I feel really stressed out and I might have an inappropriate response, or I might not be as kind as I should be, is the importance of teaching strategies like using your breath as a tool across situations from a young age and reinforcing it. Just because we teach it in early childhood doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to teach it through middle school and high school, because we're changing, our circumstances and environment are changing, our social situations are different. And so learning how to apply these strategies in different situations is so important. I was just actually at the grocery store with my daughters, and we had a really frustrating interaction in line with the grocery store, and it wasn't anyone's fault. It just was a thing that happened. It was taking forever, and everyone was really heightened and really frustrated. And I was like, let's just breathe. It's okay. Nothing bad is happening. We're not like, no one's freaking out. We're just going to take a couple deep breaths. And like everyone did, and it was okay. And it's something that, we could have gotten frustrated, spoken up, ruined a relationship. None of those would have been kind or productive at all. And so, I think about, one model I've seen work really well, especially when I was teaching in early childhood out near Boston, was before you teach turn taking, for example, take a moment and practice the strategies that you might use in a situation of turn taking if you get frustrated, if it doesn't go your way. So have the kids practice deep breathing or just closing their eyes and thinking about something that's positive. So they're prepared with that strategy before going into turn taking situation. So like Shanda was saying, we're never going to not teach those really important social skills. But we can't just skip over and assume that they have the strategies to bring into that situation. And that goes back to kind of the foundation of what Shanda and I do, which is mindfulness based social emotional learning. So we call it mindfulness based because it's first being mindful of your own feelings, your emotions, your behaviors, and how those impact those around you, and then move into all of those social skills.
Well, and going back to talking about reiterating it throughout our kids' childhoods all the way through teens, I mean, we can think about how we are as adults. Like, we forget to stop and take that pause. So we know it has to be repeated. They have to hear it over and over again. We know in pre K and our pilot studies that the kids really learn it quickly. And they sometimes even turn around and tell the teachers, can we take a few breaths? We've seen that in a lot of the feedback from teachers. And then from the teens' perspective, when we get feedback from them, they say one of the things that have been the most powerful is just being reminded that they can pause and take those breaths. So I think it's a constant need. We can't just teach it in pre-K and say, oh, they got it. It's something that we're going to need our whole lives. And even into adulthood, we still have to remind each other and still have to practice it.
Right. And that's a excellent point you bring up about adults, is that us modeling it for our children. So if you are an adult working with children, or you're a provider creating some sort of curriculum or program to use in schools, um, I think helping teachers recognize that it's okay. So if you're really frustrated at a situation, because there are frustrating moments in teaching all day, every day, it's okay to acknowledge the feeling that you're having and also use self-talk. I am feeling really frustrated right now. We have practiced this many times. I'm going to close my eyes and count to three and take a couple of deep breaths so that then when I talk to you, I am kind and helpful. We can use that language and model it because that is what we would expect our children to do in a really generalized way in all of these situations so that, we as teachers, just like we would model how to do math or how to do reading or how to decode words, how to put a puzzle together, how to do pre-calculus up on a whiteboard. We model all of these different academic skills, and we need to model these really important mindfulness-based SEL skills as well, which as an educator and a parent, I try, and also it helps reinforce that having feelings are okay. It's totally fine to be frustrated, to be upset. What's not okay is to have that behavior because of your feelings negatively impact those around you. And that's where kind of this mediator of self-awareness and self-regulation comes in, is that's our responsibility to do that part between this big feeling we're having and then our behavior towards someone else. Um, so I'm especially mindful, as a parent who's also raising children to go out into the world. I'm like, okay, we have to be mindful of how we're interacting with the world.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Allison. I think that those of us with kids can feel it quite a bit every day, and that those of us that have spent even just one day in a classroom really understand the importance of both self-awareness and self-management. So we're probably, preaching to the choir here in terms of reminding people that these are the skills that we need first. But I think the more we hear it, the more we can reiterate on the fact that the programs we should be using really focus on those two items first, those two concepts. Or if you are just worried about what you need to be doing in the classroom, modeling those two things first, I think are essential. So just to summarize, start with self-awareness and self-management. I think that a lot of what we are doing is already modeling those behaviors. And so to continue doing those, or if you're going to start talking about social awareness and relationship management, which come later, using self-awareness and self-management as the tools into those two concepts. So that's all we have for you today. Make sure you keep an eye on our YouTube page and on our website. And on the next slide, you'll see our website if you don't have it already. And we'll see you in the next video.